Well, we wrapped up our At the Movie series last weekend. I just want to remind everyone of why we do this series. Matthew 13:34 says, Jesus did not tell them anything without illustrating it with a story. And so this series, we use a movie as the illustration of the story as we teach God's Word. We think it's a great opportunity to kind of mix things up and in a very creative way, help people understand God's Word better. Instant Family is a true story of a couple who begin to talk about adoption, which often leads to talk about fostering. So the emphasis for today, though, is about NCC and yours and my role in advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves, defending the defenseless. Isaiah 1 says this, learn to do good, seek justice, reprove the ruthless, defend the orphans, plead for the widows. Paul teaches us also that through Jesus we are, get this, adopted as the sons and daughters of God. So this is at the very heart of God. Now, in the religious world that Jesus lived in, and maybe the religious world that some of you were raised in, a person could love God and treat people poorly. But Jesus, he comes and he redefines loving God. He tells us that the way that we love God is by loving people. And I think one of the reasons we get angry about suffering is there's something inherent in us that tells us it shouldn't be this way, because it's God's written that on the human heart, is what I believe. Justice comes from the heart of God. Now you go to 1 John chapter 3, verse 17, we read, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? So John's crystal clear. You can't claim to love God if you see a need that you can meet and then refuse to do anything about it. Matthew 25, Jesus himself tells a parable about taking care of the hungry, the sick, the thirsty, the stranger, those in prison. And then he applies it to you and to me. He says, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So when we help those who can't help themselves, we're not only being like Jesus, but we're also serving Jesus. So this week, make sure you serve Jesus.